Welcome, guys. We're back here. We're talking 1995 Rugby World Cup, 25 years ago today, the quarterfinal against Western Samoa. That time, not just Samoa as we know them now, Western Samoa. And we joined today, Gavin's with me as per normal. And we joined here today with Jonathan Mokuena, former Blitzbok and Leopards coach and Pucker coach. And I'm not sure how do I describe you, Jonah? What else should I add to that?
Or maybe just a good lad, Brenden. A good lad will be fine.
One of the reasons why we asked Jonathan to come along with us and chat to us today, trying to do something a bit different. Jonathan's obviously played against Samoa at sevens level a lot, and he knows all about their tackling skills and how tough they are. And he also, obviously, being a South African fan, met Chester as a coach and coached against him as well, knew him quite well in Chester's last couple of years as well. So that's why I thought we'd chat a bit. But let's start, first of all, I suppose on that 95 quarterfinal at Ellis Park, 4 tries by Chester. He'd just come in. We last week we spoke to Henny LaRue and Christian Stewart about the Canada game. And now Chester comes in amongst controversy, gets back into the side. Probably a great thing in a way for the team that he did come back in that 95 context, and scores 4 tries on his first game back. Jonah, maybe just tell us what you remember about the game. How old were you back then?
Well, I think I was about 14, eh? I'm 39 now, so it should be about 14. Is that right, Brenden?
Yeah, that sounds good.
You know, so I think I think for me, when I look back and I reflect back, I think that was basically the year also, rugby started, getting into my blood. As you know, I actually went to Fort Rica High School on a bursary that I received, to go and play, to go and study, not play sport. Because, not a lot of people believe this, but I actually got a bursary to go as part of my academics and not part of my sport. And then from there things just started going well. Arriving at Hoërskool Fort Rica, they, back in the day, the laws of kids playing sport were still strict. You had to play a summer sport and you had to play a rugby sport, a winter sport. And of course, that time, rugby was quite big. And, for the first time, I actually started learning the laws of rugby, and understanding what rugby is about. And then that was the year exactly that Chester Williams did that magic. And of course, I thought I was Chester Williams when I ran into the field, So it was a bit of a dual thing for me. On the one side, picking up the bug for rugby, and on the other side, actually looking up to someone and being able to kind of recognize someone that represents me in the Springbok team. So that was a great year for me.
Jonathan, you may not remember this if you're only 14, but at the time Chester was he was on all the lights, on all the posts, on all the lamp posts around South Africa. There was a picture of his face, and it was an old South African Airways when it was a proper airline. We're talking about 1995. He was on all the lampposts, and the words there were, "The waiting is nearly over." And he ended up getting injured just before the World Cup, and he missed the first bit of the World Cup, and that was a huge disaster. Do you remember that? Was there sort of a disappointment when you heard that Chester wasn't going to be part of the World Cup? And then, by contrast, was there sort of joy when you heard that he was actually going to be playing after all?
Okay, so as you know, we in 94 or 95 because I got the bursary, some of my friends used to invite me to go and watch rugby at Newlands, and we would get a special pass. When you wear your school kit, you had a special place right behind the poles. And I remember Chester playing for Western Province, not knowing that he was going to be one of the pillars for the Springboks going into the World Cup. And so, when of course, because I don't come from a rugby background, immediately I felt there was a connection, even though Chester didn't know who I was. There was a connection from our side in seeing someone that was gonna eventually just go on and represent the country. But again, then like you mentioned, the the possibility of him not playing. There was a bit of some disappointment because at that time everyone wanted to be Chester Williams in the communities, and there was that half emotional thing of wanting him to play, but also not knowing if he was going to play.
I think, Jonah, and that's something maybe, especially from, we were covering. Gavin was covering the tournament at that stage as a reporter. I was at a community newspaper. I still wasn't a rugby writer back then, but obviously a big Springbok rugby fan. Yeah. But I think that thing is maybe it didn't hit home. And Gavin, you might have a different view of this, but for me, back then you knew that Chester was an inspiration for a whole lot of people that maybe we didn't know at that time, whole communities that we weren't familiar with. But as you say, in the townships and in the communities, everyone wanted to be him in the street games. And so maybe just talk about how big that impact he had on sort of those communities.
Look, for me, the first time I really noticed, how big Chester really is and was when he invited me to play sevens in Dubai as an invitational team. And, on arriving in Dubai, because we had a development team and he got some sponsors together and he was the coach and obviously taking us there. We were at one of the biggest rugby spectacles in Dubai. And I promise you, every second or third person knew who Chester was, and that to me just made me realize how big it was. In saying that, on our way back coming from Dubai, I stopped next to we happened to bump into a guy, Sonny Bill Williams, who was also at the time quite a big superstar. And he came up to me asking me, is that Chester? With so much hype and so much excitement, because for him, that was also a massive thing. And here I am, who was just in the middle between the two, and Chester doing his own thing, and Sonny Bill Williams on the other side, in awe of Chester. And him by himself is a massive, a sporting hero. So in that moment, I really, kind of understood the enormity of and the responsibility Chester had on his shoulders in representing people from Khayelitsha, Eastern Cape, the Cape Flats, etc., etc.
I actually didn't realize you played a bit with him then at sevens. I thought you came after him when Paul True took over at the sevens there. But you actually, did you coach at sevens?
Yes, no, it was. He invited me to a few camps, but then unfortunately I wasn't good enough that time, But under Paul True, I got my opportunity, and then I went on to captain and play sevens.
Okay, and I don't know if you have memories of that game with the 4 tries as such. I watched some of the highlights a bit earlier today. I don't know if you can remember them, Gav. Especially the one thing that came out was, those days there was quite a lot of high tackles that were flying around, huge ones. And in the video, which I'll probably play over this, you'll see some of them. But literally taking guys' heads off. And if I remember right, Just actually afterwards caused a bit of trouble at the post-match when he called it a coconut tackle, which was obviously quite offensive to people then. But that was quite a mark of that. I remember I was sitting in the stands in that day, and I remember the crowd baying for blood and the referee just ignoring these high tackles the whole time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I've watched that game so many times over and over, and I remember specifically, I think Chester's second one, which he scored in the left-hand corner, where one of the Samoans actually came in with the knee after he scored the try. And again, you kind of just see what I've picked up was Chester's humility in not being bothered with that guy coming in with his knee. Now, if it was me, Brenden, I think something else probably would have happened. I probably would have given the guy a hug or something, But it was just really weird seeing that. And I think, Samoans has always been known for being physical and and sometimes a little bit dirty and pushing the boundary. But yeah, that game was really physical.
You've got to also put it in context. I remember going up to watch the pre-World Cup game about a month before the World Cup. South Africa played Samoa, and they smashed them. I think it was 63, something like that. Yeah. So they also knew that they did well to get to the quarterfinal. I mean, that was a good result for them to get as far as the quarterfinal. And then they had nothing to lose. Like, I think when we were speaking to Christian Stewart and Henny LaRue last week, I mentioned the Samoan game in the 2011 World Cup, where they had nothing to lose. It was their last pool game. So, again, it was one of those situations. South Africa always knew they were probably going to win that game. I mean, they're playing at Samoa at Ellis Park. You don't expect to lose to anybody at Ellis Park, let alone to a team like Samoa. Yeah. And they probably thought the Samoans probably thought, well, this is our chance to just like make a name for ourselves, and they went out and did that. I mean, probably that was probably the background to that. Yeah. Although we know that we do know that the Islanders, I mean, that is the way they play the game as well.
Yeah. And I think they also probably one of those nations that they don't back down from any physical challenge. So yeah, that's also probably why.
And in Joost's defense, Joost didn't know that he was saying something racist at the time when he spoken up. I remember one of the New Zealanders, I think it was Wyn Gray, who said to me, Joost, so this was in the big forum. He said, Joost, do you really want to be saying that? And Joost said, well, why not? I said, what you making a serious allegation? And it was like, and Joost was sitting there, and then we realized that, and then somebody helped him. But it was, in Joost's defense, I think he just sort of thought, I don't know, he wasn't thinking it was a racial slur.
Yeah. I think the other thing
sorry, Brenden. Yeah.
No, sorry, you're gonna.
Okay, I started talking earlier on with the microphone off. That's why we had that silence earlier. I was just going to ask you. So, Chester, apart from being an inspiration when he was a player, he was also an inspiration to you as a coach. Would you agree with that? I mean, did he have a big impact to you? I mean, I don't know how long you actually worked with him, but was he a big? Did he play a big role in your career?
Yeah, definitely. Since when we've worked together, we've always kind of stayed in touch. We've always shared ideas. Because me, myself, and Chester, we were going to look and see if we can't venture into some business together. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And the plan was to get more kids from the townships and take them over, give them exposure. For example, in Dubai Sevens, because that's where he was. He had a big stronghold with sponsors and stuff. And then also he was looking at taking a few players into Romania because he coached there for a few years. But yeah, even he was just the type of guy that would go out of his way for you, and you could see it by the way he treated the boys at UWC. Unfortunately, when we coached against each other last year, he lost, or they lost against against NWU. But just the way in how he managed the boys and how he kept them confident and calm, that to me shows a lot of respect.
John, before I lost you, what I asked you was the one thing that probably disappointed me about Chester was the fact that when he went from sevens coaching to 15s coaching, he almost jumped in too quickly and went straight from there to the Cats and had that disastrous season with the Cats. I think 2 seasons with them, and then it's almost like the rugby fraternity never forgave him for that because he struggled to get jobs after that.
Yeah,
and it was almost right near the end, just before he passed away, that he started building up his career again, almost from the bottom upwards at UWC, and he was becoming a very good coach there. I know you as a coach as well knows obviously how hard it is to get breakthrough in rugby, and just that. I mean, did you ever get any lessons from him, or did he ever talk about that with you? Because it does seem that sometimes the fraternity is very unforgiving.
Yeah, unforgiving, but also to with a little bit of unfairness as well. Because I mean, Chester was given opportunity at the time where there wasn't really a lot of coaches of color getting opportunity. And, you know, if I was in his shoes, I probably would have done the same. But the bad thing is, and also that I've had a chat to him about this, was that even though he was given the head coach role or a role at the Cats, he wasn't really allowed to do things that he wanted to do because, you know, managing the players from the Lions and the Cheetahs was just a logistical nightmare. You know, because he said it was so difficult at times that when he managed the Cheetah players, the Lions players wasn't happy. When he managed the Lions players, the Cheetah players wasn't happy. So I can just imagine how difficult it must have been for him, you know. And also because I know Chester, and I know he's a guy that's got a lot of pride. So he probably would have gone in there, knowing and thinking he could turn things around. But unfortunately, it didn't happen the way it did.
Jonathan, before we started this chat earlier, I asked you where you are, and I meant it geographically at the time. Like, are you in Johannesburg? Are you in Cape Town? But you actually answered and you said you know where, and you were talking about your coaching career, which surprises me because surely you know I would just think that you would be a guy who they'd be encouraged and should be able to sort of get in somewhere easily. What exactly is happening? Why are you in inverted commas nowhere at the moment?
Well, I can't give you the bottom line in terms of why, but I know you know as we can see there's not a proper system getting young coaches through into the into the next level of coaching, and that's unfortunately where the first problem starts. You know, I think we talk about transformation, giving players of color opportunity. Maybe we should look at coaches of color as well. Also, you know, giving a pathway for them, because currently at the top level, there's not a lot of coaches of color, and so I think I've cut my teeth long enough now with the Leopards and Northwood University, and I haven't done too bad. You know, it's just now a matter of getting the next opportunity. But when that is going to happen and when it's going to come, I don't know.
Do we have a coaching problem in this country in the sense that I remember I did a book on the Springbok coaches about 8 years ago, and I spoke to Andre Markroff, and he said that the one thing that he feels that this country really needs is a rugby coaching academy. He says we've got rugby academies for players. He said like an academy, something that's structured, something that's done scientifically, and people won't get lost to the system, because then people will you know, there'll be a scientific way of measuring people, their progress and that sort of thing. Do you think that there's merit in that? I mean, do you think that maybe South African rugby is lacking something through the lack of a sort of a coaching structure, which is lacking in this country?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely opportunity for something like this. But at the same time, I need to say that there are coaches ready and available now as we speak to take on the next level. You know, I'll mention guys like Paul True. You know, he's one of probably the highest qualifications academically, and also experience-wise, he's ready to go. We talk about David Manuel, who's currently with the Bulls. You know, he's been with the Super Rugby. We talk about David Maitza, who's been in the system long enough and ready. We talk about Hayden Groepies, who's been with the Super Rugby, a Bull setup. Joey Mangola has now moved from the Lions to the Bulls. So who's gonna take over that spot? We talk about Tumani Boy, who's coached at Pro 14 level. So where are they? You know, and that is what we need. We need, you know, if guys move around as opportunity, then those should be the guys coming in, and then obviously feeding system from schools and university. You know, just plugging the gaps if someone needs to go.
Is there not like a bit of a fear factor as well? You almost feel you're not going to be back. I remember speaking to, I think it was Shimi, for a book a year ago. I spoke to Anyani Shimai, and he sort of, you know, he is coaching at Province, obviously, as you know, but at the same time, he almost sort of intimated to me when I was talking to him that, you know, like, it's almost safer being like a commentator, because it's, you know, if you get pushed too soon in this country, like was the case with Chester, you might just disappear into the ether and get forgotten. So you don't want to sort of push yourself and yourself to just be the coach. You need to almost have something like he's got, which is he can also be a commentator. And I've got a feeling that I've almost forgotten his name. Other guy from SuperSport, Gabani. Yeah. Gabani. Gabani sort of told me the same story about why he didn't try and sort of coach earlier in his career, and he's also sort of going a different route.
Yeah, well, look, I think coaching is a cutthroat business. I think there's one thing or two things. You're going to be hired eventually, and you're going to be fired eventually along the line. So and that is why myself and Chester actually spoke, because we identified this as a possible trigger, and that would then allow or not allow you to coach with freedom. Whereas if you only rely on the income of coaching, it gives you a little bit of fear. So you can't really do what you need to, what you want to do, because you need to think about things. What if they fire you, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's definitely merit to that statement, Gav. But at the same time, I do think there's coaches that's ready to take that opportunity, take that chance without having a plan B.
Okay. Good news. Good news, but unfortunately nobody's backing.
Yeah.
I think we agree on that one. I think we'd like to see more coaches coming through. John, I think we've got what we needed. Jeff, thank you very much for your time. I hope somebody sees this and gives you a call and tells you this is the reason why they phoned you, is because they saw you on this wonderful chat that we've had. And hopefully next time we chat to you, you've got some great news for us, that you're coaching some wonderful team. But thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate it, sharing your memories of chess.
Anytime, Brenden. Anytime, man. Chester's been he's such a great legend, and I'm just honored to at least do something in his name and honor him.
I think we might have John on back again at some point, just to talk about his career at some point as well. But we will do something like this. But thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cheers, man.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.